If you want to continue to follow our adventure, click subscribe. So you don't miss anything, click the bell notification. Hello, House on the Road subscribers and followers. I just watched a video on stealth camping. For those of you that don't know what stealth camping is, it is when you are living in the city in your van and you're trying to disguise the fact that you're living in a van. In the video, it was trying to discuss different ways to stealth camp and some of the methods you would have to do to make this feasible. I've done some city living since Carolyn's daughter has gotten sick. We've had to move around and do different things. So a lot of people are going to say, well, we're not stealth camping because we have this big camper attached to our truck, and everybody's going to know that that's a camper, not a van. People who are living in a van, I've always been able to identify that they've been living in a van. The van dwellers are not really all that stealthy. There's all kinds of key indicators, and if I'm smart enough to figure it out, you know, the police and the people who work at these department stores that have to deal with people living in their vans in their parking lot know the same thing. It's always the same thing. Usually it's an older van. The windows are usually always tinted. They're usually always parked underneath a shade tree. Their tail end of their vehicle is always sagging down because they got a lot of weight in the back end. Another indicator is, and this is not always an indicator, but it's a high class van dweller. So if they don't have an older beat up van, there's always this newer van that has solar panels on the top. Well, if you're not living in your van, why do you need solar panels? And they have not asked permission, otherwise they wouldn't need to be stealthy. That's the other thing. If you feel the need that you need to be stealthy to hide the fact that you're living in your van, you're breaking rules. You know you're breaking rules. You have to go into a parking lot to sleep. You're supposed to go ask permission. Well, if you're not asking permission, you're just sleeping hoping that you don't get caught. You're breaking rules, possibly even laws, city ordinances. Now, here's the funny thing about stealth camping. In the van groups on Facebook, they like to criticize me when I post in the group because, you're not a van dweller, you're not stealthy. But about every other post in these van groups, you'll see somebody say, got the knock at the door. The knock at the door means a police officer came to the door, knocked on the door, and said, you can't sleep here. Well, if they're being stealthy, which is the criteria of being in this group, then why are they getting a knock on the door? If it's stealthy, then it should just look like a van parked in the parking lot, and if the van is not supposed to be there, the cop would have never knocked on the door in the first place. They just wrote a ticket, put it on the windshield. A parking ticket, not a knock on the door. Why would a cop knock on the door if you're just parking there? If you parked your car in an illegal spot, they don't knock on the door to see if somebody's in it. Nope, they just write a ticket. So you're not being stealthy. You're not fooling anybody. Everybody knows that you're living in your van in the city. Now, in this video, they talked about having to move around quite a bit, and you do. Since we've been having to go into the city to visit Carolyn's daughter, I'm moving around constantly because I don't want people to recognize that I'm there. But even in this video, they were talking about, in order so people don't get suspicious of you, you're going to have to move around quite a bit. You know, you're going to have to park at the Walmart parking lot for a couple hours, and then you're going to have to go over to the McDonald's for a couple hours, then you're going to have to go over to Planet Fitness for a couple hours, and then you're going to have to go over to Burger King for a couple hours, then you're going to go over to City Park for a couple hours. And so all day long, you're moving around from spot to spot. Well, if you're being stealthy, how are they going to know? Maybe you're working at the store. Maybe you come to the same store every day. I mean, when I work, I always even parked in the same parking spot. When I worked for a company, I would pull in the same parking spot every day. So if you're being stealthy, how does anybody who's going to be suspicious of your vehicle not know that you're just working at the store? See, so this whole stealthy thing isn't stealthy. You're not stealthy. Now, with all this moving around, what kind of life is that? This has been the most stressful time since we have started our adventure. As far as living in the camper, I mean, we've had some other stressful moments, you know, the camper fire and bad guys and those kind of things. But as far as living in it and having to establish a lifestyle, being in the city has been the hardest thing to do. You'll quickly identify that when people are starting to get suspicious of you. Why are you there? I mean, a city park even. I parked in the city park. Now, granted, I have to run my generator, but even if I had solar panels, they're going to get suspicious. Whether I was in a van or a camper, doesn't matter. They're going to get suspicious as to why this van is parked in the parking lot with solar panels. Look, it looks creepy, is what it is. You know, kids are coming out to the park to play and have a good time, and all of a sudden they got this spooky looking van. It looks spooky. It looks suspicious. And in today's society, I just read a sign the other day in a city park that said, cameras are monitoring the activity in this park. Please dial 911 for suspicious activity. Well, a van parked in a parking spot with it kind of bouncing around every few minutes, knowing that somebody's living in it, it's suspicious. Now, at the end of this video, this person described the advantages of living in a van. One, that you're going to be close to nature. That, you know, you're going to experience the heat and the cold and the ravens landing on the camper, and you're going to be closer to nature, and it's wonderful, and it's just a great lifestyle. I don't know how to explain this anymore. It is one of the most stressful things that I've ever had to deal with. Sirens going by every few minutes, people talking outside your camper. You're always wondering if somebody's talking about who's in the camper. You're always on alert. They say that you don't get to experience the environment as much, you know, nature as much as you do when you're living in a van, even in the city, which is, in my opinion, an absolute falsehood. When I was living in a stick and brick, the biggest problem I had was work. As far as living in a house, I loved it. We always had the windows open when we could, the doors open. Even in the wintertime, we would go out and make little campfires outside. You can always do something out in your yard. Here's the thing about living in vans. You don't want the employees to catch you sleeping in the parking lot. So you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you start driving around. Well, are you enjoying nature? Or are you driving around trying to get away from, you know, somebody rapping on your door? Everybody's going to say, well, it's cheaper to live in a van. No, it's not cheaper to live in a van. I see it in the comments of our YouTube videos all the time. People talking about how expensive it is, and they rattle off all kinds of things. Look, if you're having to move around from McDonald's to Burger King to Planet Fitness, every time you move throughout the day, you're having to buy a cup of coffee or something to eat or something, because the owners of that store isn't going to just let you hang around for an hour not buying anything. You have to buy something, so now there goes your cost. In this video, it talked about that rent's going to be $1,000, so you're automatically going to save $1,000. Well, rent, when I was renting, was not that high. I was renting a house for $350 a month, and it had 8 acres. Carolyn, when I met Carolyn, she was paying $400 a month for a house. Before I found the house with the 8 acres, I was living in an apartment for $500. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Click like if you like the video, and happy travels.